Hi, I'm Robert Reich, and the topic today is the myth, and it is a myth, of Americans living beyond our means. Now, you will be hearing over the next weeks or months that there is no serious alternative to cutting Social Security and Medicare, raising taxes on the middle class, and decimating what's left of federal discretionary spending on everything from education to job training to highways and basic research. Well, that is baloney. Most of the people making this argument are very wealthy or are sponsored by the very wealthy. Wall Street moguls like Pete Peterson, his Fix the Debt Brigade, the Business Roundtable. All of this is packaged in a mythology that Americans have been living beyond our means. We have been, according to this view, unwilling to pay for what we want government to do for us, and we are now reaching the day of reckoning. The truth is most Americans have not been living beyond their means. The problem is their means haven't been keeping up with the growth of the economy, which is why most of us need better education, infrastructure, health care, stronger safety nets. The real median wage is only slightly higher now than it was 30 years ago, even though the economy is twice as large as it was 30 years ago. The only people whose means have soared are at the very top, because they've received almost all the gains from growth. Over the last 3 decades, the top 1%'s share of the nation's income has doubled. The top 1/10 of 1%'s share has tripled. The richest 1/10 of 1% is now earning as much as the bottom 120 million Americans put together. And if you look at wealth, wealth has become even more concentrated than income. Income, you see, is a stream of money. Wealth is the pool into which that stream flows. The richest 1% now own more than 35% of all of the nation's household wealth, 38% of the nation's financial assets, including stocks and pension funds. Think about this. The richest 400 Americans have more wealth than the bottom 150 million of us put together. Those 6 Walmart heirs have more wealth than the bottom 33 million American families combined. So why are we even contemplating cutting programs the middle class and poor depend on and raising their taxes? We should instead tax the vast accumulations of wealth that are now in the hands of a relative few. To the extent most Americans have any wealth at all, it's in their homes, whose prices have stopped falling in most of the country, but are still down almost 30% from their 2006 peak. Yet homes are subject to the only major tax on wealth, property taxes. So why not a tax on wealth at the top? A small 2% surtax on the wealth of the richest 1/2 of 1% of Americans, owning more than $7.2 million of assets, would generate at least $70 billion a year. That's $750 billion over the decade. Together with revenues from the fiscal cliff deal, that's $1.4 trillion, which just about equals the spending cuts the White House has already agreed to. Now, it seems to me that's a pretty good start on deficit reduction. If we want more deficit reduction, then raise the wealth tax to 3% on the super rich. The idea that most Americans have been living beyond their means is pure fantasy, perpetrated by a small minority at the top whose means have gone through the stratosphere. That's where America's wealth has accumulated. There is no justification for reducing our budget deficit by adding to the burdens on average Americans and the poor. Thanks.